Hi, everyone. This is Fabio Gomez with Magic Mortgage. I have a really good friend of mine, a partner here, a colleague from Coldwell Banker. His name is David Weiss. Wanted to introduce him. He's a great producer here locally. Dave, thanks so much for coming out and
Thanks
meeting
for
with us.
having me.
What are the things that has led you to be successful in your field? I've seen some of the stuff firsthand because I was working with you, but obviously since then, you've had some opportunities come up and you've jumped on them. So tell me a little bit about your background. At what point in your life did you say, you know what, let's try real estate? Because I know you're originally from New York, but I know you have a background in cooking. Tell me a little bit, how did you go from what you did before to real estate?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's a large disparity in this country in general about um, W-2 jobs versus 1099, right? Commission-based salary versus um, W-2, like your normal 9 to 5 job. So I actually started in the culinary field. I was trained by the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, which is one of the leading cooking schools in the world. Um, 19 years old, went out into the workforce, worked for Ritz Carlton, Marriott, Hilton, Waldorf Astoria, just to name a few. And COVID happened, just like a number of people. I was laid off, just like everybody else. I have a good friend who's a broker in New York, who basically said, Dave, you should think about taking the real estate exam. And I almost laughed it off because it was almost comical to me at that point. Um, I had a good friend in Tampa who said, I want you to come look at this house with me that he was buying. And I said to him, I said, that's insane. I don't know anything about buying a house. But he said, but you own one. So just come with me. So I did. Um, as the agent was showing it, I started noticing that she didn't really have a good grasp on what was going on. And she was being very pushy. And I asked her at the end, I said, how did you get into this? And she said, well, I took the real estate exam. I said, well, how hard is it? She said, it wasn't very hard. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go study. And one of the things that people I think understand about me is once I put my mind to it, I'm just gonna do it. There's just no other way to do it. Studied hard, took the test, passed the test, and kind of the rest is ancient
So
history.
would you say, being honest, being a realtor, is that something that you go, because now everybody's going on Instagram and YouTube to learn stuff. Is this something you go, oh, let me go on YouTube, watch 5 videos, and I could become a realtor? Would you agree?
Definitely not. A lot of it's been trial and error, right? Like I work with a lot of new agents who say, well, I want to follow you to an open house, or I want to go with you on a call. There's nothing better than actually going through the process because that's what's going to make you a stronger realtor and have the answer. When I was new, I had no idea um, what was going on. Just like any business, it's equally hard, equally challenging, equally demanding. I think that you speak to any entrepreneur in general, and they're going to have the same answer. Nothing is easy, especially not in real estate. Anything could happen at any moment. Deals can go sideways. There's so many different reactions and movements and understanding people's psychology at the same time.
What would you say is some of the key habits that you find for, let's say, a new realtor? See, I've spoken to a lot of people who are years and years as realtors. You become real estate coaches and things like that. And most of them are focused on the realtors that have already 4 or 5 years, trying to get them to the next level. But let's say those brand new realtors, what do you think are, let's say, 3 key habits that they need to wake up thinking about, go to sleep thinking about, that will get them from maybe closing 1 or 2 deals a year to maybe, let's say 10 a year? What do you think is important to take that step?
So every day I start with a quote, which is something that's important to me, something to get me motivated. And there's one quote that I value above all else. So it says, obsession beats talent any day of the week.
Love it.
And that was said by Michael Jordan. And that's because you could have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the obsession, right, then you don't really have it. I will say, particularly in this business, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. 90% of the time, you are going to be extremely uncomfortable. You're going to be walking into a perfect stranger's home. You're going to be cold calling a certain individual. Maybe you're meeting a certain person at the open house. So for me, work habit is way more important. I can teach anyone how to write a contract. That's not the hard part. But understanding people and understanding work habit is where people die off in the business. I would say the first thing is you need to be consistent. Don't say to me, you're going to be in the office at 9 a.m. and then you start rolling in at 10. Whatever you decide, right? You must do the same every single day and understanding that process. I think the second thing is most people don't write themselves a business plan. You can't expect to get to the level that a lot of agents are at if you don't know what you're spending money on and how you're doing it. So I always encourage everybody write yourself a business plan and don't make it unrealistic. Make it the things that you want to achieve in business, but also the things that you want to achieve in your personal life at the same time. Maybe you want to go to Aruba, right? How are you going to get to Aruba? How many closings do you need to do in order to get to Aruba? So these are all things that are extremely, extremely important to me.
One thing that stands out with what you're saying is the fact that you have to help. Obviously, you have to hold yourself accountable with everything you do. A business plan is super important because you probably can attest to this. Once you start making a couple of closings and your real estate license and name is out there, you're going to be showered with a bunch of different companies trying to, oh, marketing, we do this, leads, oh, pay us $200 a month and we'll give you leads. Oh, we'll set up a website, we'll give you this. So you're being solicited left and right. So I think that having a business plan that includes, where you spend your money and your time is super important.
Yep.
But I see that the daily work grind is above all everything else.
The last thing I would say, which is very important, is having a schedule, right? And having a day to day schedule. I have two things. I have a schedule that I write on Sunday nights consistently, but I also have a to-do list. I go on my emails once a day and it's like clockwork, right? You have to be like almost like a ninja in that sense where
Mhm.
you have to understand time is always against you. You only have 24 hours in a day. The 24 hours is the same for everyone, but how do you spend that 24 hours? If you're just answering emails every single moment of the day, you would get nothing done. So having a schedule is probably above all one of the most important things that I value.
Perfect. Um, let's say that you're a new real estate agent. When COVID happened, one of the things people say, "Oh, now we can't show the houses." A bunch of people stop being realtors. And there was actually a decrease in realtors. Of course, that increased more business for those who stayed in the business. And now with everything that happened with NAR and the settlement, and people will say, "Oh, it's going to be more difficult to be a buyer's agent." Blah blah blah. People started leaving the business. So there's still business out there, but for the new agents, what are some of the biggest mistakes new agents you've seen? New agents left and right all the time at Coldwell Banker. What are the biggest mistakes these new agents make that if they avoid them, they can become successful?
I think that you have to understand the market, and the market is ever changing. Um, what you did or what any agent did 3 years ago is not going to matter right now because the market is completely different. You have to be an expert in your market because if you're not, then how can you possibly explain it to a client? Everything focuses around the market, the stock market, the bond market, all the different things that are attributed with that. And if you can't understand the trends of the market, whether that be the NAR lawsuit or the anywhere settlement or what is a buyer's market, how much inventory there is, you have to be able to be the calm in the hurricane. And if you can't understand that, then you really have no place doing this job.
That's one of the things we've known each other for a few years, and one of the things that I have learned is Dave is straight up. He'll tell you if this is probably not the career for you. Um, it's probably something to change. He'll tell you right up front. So, as far as I know, you are an individual agent. We spoke a couple of days ago. You said that you've just recently um, started working with an assistant or with someone to work on your buyer's agent stuff, right?
So one of the things that I've worked on and my business has gone through stages is is scaling really, right? Because you can't be everywhere at once. As you get your level of business busier, you need to be able to hand off because you're only one person. You can't go out and show 16 homes and then expect that you can prospect for listings at the same time. It is impossible. So division of labor is really, really important. There's different levels to your business. What I'm doing right now, I could not have done 5 years ago. It's impossible. I was still trying to figure things out. I did just hire a buyer agent who, for me, and anyone who knows me knows that I'm very selective about who I work with on a regular basis. For me, it was drive that was the most important factor because anything can be taught. Um, you just, I understand people and drive, and for me, that was the most important mitigating factor.
What's the craziest deal that you've had to go through?
Um, so many to count. I've had closings from jail before. I've dealt with brothels. There's just too many to count. My always good saying is can't hide anything in real estate. Everything always comes out regardless of what happens. So um
Oh,
well,
just to clear up, the brothel was that you were either helping someone sell it or helping someone buy
I
it.
was helping someone sell it
Okay.
100%. So it it was just a unique situation having to do with divorce and a lot of other attributes that have to go with it. I think it's fun. It's a fun business. Like you never know what you're gonna walk into that day. And there's some days I win, and then there's some days I go home and I'm like I didn't accomplish anything today, right? But you know, the great thing about real estate is it's never gonna stop. People have been buying and selling for 200 years. It's not because of the NAR lawsuit or interest rates or any of those things that it's ever going to stop. Someone's
Yeah.
always going to buy no matter what. But it's in my view, it's do you have the mental fortitude to outlast it?
Yeah. No, that is key. So let me ask you this: in the past 24 hours, I'm sorry, past 12 months, what has been your production?
So I've had 33 transactions in the last 12 months. On the books right now, I've had four closings this year, along with I have another 3 million on the books. So it's repping up to be a good year, but again, it's all about mindset.
Mhm.
I didn't take December off, right? Everybody else took December off. It was almost a ghost town in my office. I knew that I needed to stack listings. I needed to do the things that were necessary. And again, that's what builds good business mindset. Um,
Absolutely, and you've created a let's just say a sequence of tasks that have brought success to you. Let me ask you something because I know that you're you're starting in, well, you probably have started last year in the commercial. What brought you going from, you know what, I've become an expert to residential. Here's some opportunities in commercial. What made you think, oh, let's go to that transition?
so I've been in about commercial for 3 years now. Um, Definitely not an expert in residential. Every time you think that you have a handle on something residential,
Yes, you're right.
it kind of throws you for a loop. I will say that commercial is a very, very different animal entirely. And I had a mentor. It was not like I just said one day, "Hey, by the way, I'm going to start selling buildings." And any residential agent that is thinking that should not do it in any way, shape, or form. And I'm very outspoken about this. Commercial is a very old boys club, in that sense. Everyone does business with people that they know and trust. It's not like you can just go knock on a building and say, "Hey, sir, I'd love to sell your home," just like you can do in residential. It's a very, very different animal. It has no emotions attached to it whatsoever. It's very math oriented. So, a very large gap between residential and commercial. Residential is very emotional, commercial is not. You could spend your entire life trying to sell deals and never even sell one, for instance, and it could take several years to do it. There are agents that specialize in different types of classes. So, for instance, you could only be in multifamily, you could be in industrial, you could be in lease space, you could be in development. There are so many different avenues, but usually when commercial agents do it, they stick to one type of asset class. Mine in particular is industrial single tenant um, buildings and multifamily. I don't do anything else. So I don't do really lease space or
Yeah.
any of those things. The way that I started with it, I was already selling a lot of duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. I was helping convert residential property to commercial property. And my broker said to me, he said, Dave, you really have the fortitude to be in the commercial space. And I spent the next 3 years learning and studying and doing and keeping my mouth shut a lot of the time and listening. I didn't write my first LOI for almost 2 years. So it was it's a large um, difference between residential and commercial. If you're a residential agent who's thinking about getting into commercial, number one, I would talk to your broker, hands down, and I would find a mentor. Don't just say, well, I did this, so I could probably sell commercial. You will end up getting yourself into a lot of trouble. And that's just my personal opinion. If you're looking at, man, I know some people who are looking to buy or sell commercial, I would happily be a resource to any residential agent. I love working with residential agents, paying them referral fees, any of those things. But I don't think that you should just one day decide that you're going to do commercial.
On that note, also, because you do have a coach, I mean, you've probably had what more than
I've
one,
had
right?
several.
Several. At what point of, let's say you're starting out, at what point you think you say, you know what, it's time to get maybe a personal coach? What was the things that, okay, this is the right moment?
So I've always had a coach in real estate, and I'm a very, very big fan of it because you need to be held accountable. Your broker is not going to hold you accountable because maybe he has 500 agents and he doesn't have personalized time. And the way that I explain it to a lot of people is, yes, it's an investment, but it's an investment in you. And if you're not willing to invest in yourself, how is someone else going to invest in you? And that's just my personal choice. Um, the coach that I have right now is Chris Leader, who is the preferred coach for Coldwell Banker. Me and him have had lots of conversations. I'm a huge fan. And whatever coach you use, whether it's Tom Ferry or whoever, you got to be comfortable with that coach. I have built a relationship with my coach, which didn't happen overnight in any way, shape, or form. And there's things that I've tried. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't. But you either go all into this business or you don't go at all. So I'm just a huge fan of coaching. I think that people expect instant gratification, and it's a very two-way street. You have to understand that you're not going to get your real estate license and then sell $1 million house. It's not going to happen. It takes time, it takes work, it takes also knowing where do you spend your money, how do you spend your money, what do you focus on, how do you focus on. I see that a lot of the trials and troubles that new agents have is that they don't know where to start,
Hmm.
right? There's so many different avenues that you could kind of go through and do and understand and all those things. You have to you have to be able to have a game plan, and a coach really helps you to do that. Like I said, I've had one for a very, very long time. Huge fan of it. I think that everybody should have one.
Well, a lot of teams, a lot of different companies will give you kind of a coach. It's not usually the broker. They'll have some type of coaching at the beginning, but I think that when you actually have to pay and invest, like you said, invest in yourself, then you become a little more particular. And obviously, having that compatibility and personality, that's super important. And it looks like you found that. Well, Dave, thank you so much. I hope that a lot of you guys that are listening out there, take the mind. If you want to get to the next level, you need to have the training. You need to have the mentorship and obviously the education and the background to be able to achieve success. And I wish you the very best of 2025 and 2026, and you're growing your business in the commercial side.
I just want to do a plug for myself. It's kind of shameless.
Yeah, that's
If
fine.
you're interested in gaining extra business for yourself as a realtor and you're from a different state or you're listening to this, and please give me a call. You can email me, david.weiss1@cbrealty.com. You can give me a phone call, 407-765-9020. I love paying referral fees. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you very much. See you later.